In a matchup with a level playing field, two challengers from the world of ice and fire go head-to-head in an assessment of brawn, brain, and leadership. You, the fans, have voted, and your champion's chosen. Today is one of the series' biggest heroes pit against one of its cruelest villains. Jon Snow versus Ramsay Snow. Let's meet our challengers. Raised as Lord Ned Stark's bastard, Jon grew up with his true-born half-brothers and sisters in Winterfell. Although Lord Eddard treated all his children alike, in the eyes of the law, Jon as a bastard would never truly be equal in status or inheritance to Robb and the others. Eager to prove himself without a family name, Jon joined the Night's Watch at 14. Discovering all too quickly that the fabled Night's Watch he had built up in his head turned out to be a dying organization primarily consisting of Westeros' most unwanted. Following a white attack on Castle Black and a raging party having recently disappeared, Jon accompanied his brothers beyond the wall. Later splitting off from the main group on a reconnaissance mission, Jon's refusal to kill a wildling woman named Ygritte gets him captured. At the command of Qhorin Halfhand, Jon infiltrates the wildlings under the guise of being a deserter. He begins an affair with Ygritte, but soon after returns to Castle Black to warn his brothers of the imminent wildling attack. The battle is won, and due in part to his heroics, Jon is elected as the new Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. However, after a series of controversial decisions, several Black brothers mutiny and decide to take Jon's life. And that's the last time we see Jon. As of A Dance with Dragons, he's been ostensibly stabbed to death. Although if you're really dying for my personal belief on the matter... Anyways, Jon is a well-trained and resourceful fighter who's able to make quick decisions in the heat of battle. His concern and compassion for others also makes him a natural leader and guide to those around him. However, like any Stark, Jon's biggest fault is focusing too much on the enemy in plain sight, and letting the threats to either side of him go unnoticed. Jon also carries his father's sense of right and wrong with him, but fails to realize that even actions carried out with the most noble or just intent still have consequences. Ramsay's story was off to a nefarious start before he was even born. After Roose Bolton found out about the miscarriage of a miller working on his land, he decided to practice the ancient and long-since banned tradition of the Right of First Night, hanging the miller from a tree and raping his wife. As a result, Ramsay was born months later. Roose agreed to support his ill-born son and the woman in exchange for her not telling Ramsay who his father was. However, when Roose's true-born son Domeric learned of Ramsay, he sought him out, wishing to learn more about the brother he always wanted. Ramsay, being Ramsay, returned the act of affection by poisoning Domeric at the first chance he got. Left without any true-born children, Roose took Ramsay in and had him legitimized by royal decree, raising him from Snow to Bolton and giving him the right to his father's inheritance. After Ramsay savagely mutilated Theon Greyjoy and burned Winterfell to the ground, the Boltons were named the new Wardens of the North. But in an attempt to win favor with the Stark loyalists, Ramsay also married Jeyne Poole, under the guise of her being Arya Stark. However, she and Theon escape, and the Boltons now stand at the edge of battle with Stannis' forces. An expert liar and butcher of those he doesn't like, Ramsay is vicious and cruel to the core. Pair that with his cunning and ambition, and you have the perfect recipe for a psychopath. But a savage nature has its weaknesses too. Ramsay makes choices recklessly both on and off the battlefield, and he and his father's actions have earned them the hatred and fear of those they rule. So, is Ramsay about to go up against someone he just can't flay, or will this turn out to be the end of Jon's watch? A battle of the Northern Bastards? Get ready to face the Snowstorm. Now, with the really bad puns out of the way, let's get started. Our first category is physical prowess, measuring strength, reflexes, and stamina to see who would win in a one-on-one fight. A quick note once again that animal companions are banned from taking part in this category, and that Jon will indeed be on his own here without the help of Ghost. From the moment he could hold a sword, Jon was trained by Winterfell's Master-at-Arms Sir Roderick Castle, and practicing daily with Robb, he and his half-brother formed a friendly but beneficial rivalry, constantly pushing each other to get better. However, many observed that Jon took the edge in speed and swordsmanship. We see Jon put his skills to good use beyond the wall, often outmaneuvering his bigger and meaner opponents, but showing that he could also take the hits when they were unavoidable. You can also bet that Jon would be bringing Longclaw to the table for this category, a Valyrian bastard sword with a much lighter weight and a better reach than a longsword. Jon also smartly wears medium armor to better take advantage of his above-average speed. Jon earns a pretty average 5.5 in strength, but he fares quite a bit better in dexterity and constitution. While Ramsay has always been large and sadistic in combat, he lacks any sort of proper training. As a result, he uses his sword wildly like a cleaver to hack at his enemies. Helped in no small part by his armor, designed to look like a flayed man, relying on frightening and overwhelming his enemy. And yeah, Ramsay does in fact wear pretty heavy plate armor in the books, whereas in the show they just decided to give him plot armor. Asha, seriously, just throw your goddamn axe at him, he's 15 feet away and he's not even wearing a f***ing shirt, But anyways, Ramsay gets a 6.5 in strength, a 3 in dexterity, and a 5 in constitution. Jon wins this one with a pretty good margin, but here's why. While he might not be on the same tier as someone like Jaime, he's proven himself to be a capable and smart fighter, even at a young age. While Ramsay's kill count might be way higher, he's a bully, not a warrior. Don't get me wrong, bullies can be incredibly effective warriors, just look at Gregor Clegane. But killing someone who's helplessly chained up isn't going to prepare you against someone who can actually fight back. Furthermore, Jon is more than patient and disciplined enough to wait for an opening in Ramsay's heavy flailing attacks. With more sense and better training, Jon takes this one. Next up is mental prowess, measuring intelligence, perception, and emotional resistance. Whose cognitive power is stronger on the ever-shifting chessboard of Westeros? Jon is a bit tricky to pin down in this category. You have to take into account his age, particularly at the beginning of the series. Jon has had moments of immaturity. For example, the hissy fit he throws at being assigned to the Stewarts instead of the Rangers like he wanted. However, he's grown a lot since then, maturing into a young man who's quick on his feet when it comes to making snap decisions, but who's able to listen to reason when the time comes. Jon is also lucky enough to have received the formal education that most bastard children wouldn't have. Putting all these factors together, Jon earns a 6 in intelligence, a 5.5 in intuition, and a 6.5 in will. Ramsay has proven himself to be an expert deceiver, being able to manipulate and lie his way out of situations. A great example being the time he tricked a desperate and unsuspecting Theon out of Winterfell before putting it to the torch. Although, my question is, why ruin a perfectly good castle? This brings up a good point about Ramsay. He often does things without thinking. He's great at coming up with and executing a plan, but gives zero thought as to what will happen down the road. His mind is set only on instant gratification. So because of this, Ramsay earns a 6 in intelligence, a 3.5 in intuition, and 6 in will. Jon edges out Ramsay 18 to 15.5 here, because he's shown a willingness to learn, and that he's able to shed his arrogance. Ramsay, well, at least you can't say he isn't creative. So there's that, I guess? Finally, we have political prowess, measuring the ability to persuade, bribe, and command others to do the heavy lifting and hard thinking for them. Jon's greatest asset in this category is his compassion for others. His ability to reach out to those he sees struggling has made him popular within the Night's Watch. He was also able to keep up the appearance of being a deserter while he was with the Wildlings, earning him a 6 in charisma. Jon, however, suffers massively from being a part of an organization that forces you to give up your claim to, well, everything, really. Earning him a 1 in wealth and a marginally better 2 in status, since at least he is at the highest position possible within the Night's Watch. Now, I know you're all going to say Robb legitimized Jon as his heir, which should make his stats higher, right? Well, this is true, but you have to remember that Robb made this decision on the false information that his true-born brothers were dead. And we aren't even sure his decree got out before his death at the Red Wedding. Paired with the fact that Jon still gave up his right to lands or titles when he joined the Night's Watch, I'd have to call this a moot point, for at least as we last see him in A Dance with Dragons. Interestingly, Ramsay's stats are kind of inverted to Jon's. Ramsay is pretty universally hated by everyone. Even those who see his usefulness still acknowledge him as a monster and don't want to deal with him directly. But what Ramsay is able to do is rest a great deal on his father's station. Being heir to the North is still a fairly big position, and something that must be taken into account here. So while Ramsay can barely muster a 2 in charisma, the land the Boltons rule and the assets they hold are what pull Ramsay's overall stats up. Enough to take the category against Jon, but not the overall win. Ramsay has his strengths, however, too much of it, as I say, relies on his father's recently acquired legacy. He's able to drop well-placed lies and manipulate those most vulnerable, but he lost today due to having an untrained fighting style and consistently lacking forethought for his actions. Jon's stats decreased as we went through today's categories, but his above-average mental prowess and pretty respectable fighting capabilities allowed him to overtake Ramsay, proving once and for all who the better bastard of the North really is. Thanks very much for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share this video if you want to see more, and make sure you leave a comment below for who you'd like to see next time on Westeros Brawls.